Welcome back to part 3 of our Resident Evil series. Now, a week ago I did part 1 where I was ranking all of the Resident Evil games from worst to best. There's a preview up here. Now, with any major successful video game series, there always ultimately comes a movie franchise that follows with it. A movie franchise based on a video game series that was supposed to be a remake of an older video game that was based on another film. Want to know what the hell I'm talking about? Because I'm confused. Check out part 2 by John Jones Fast Facts. There's a preview here and a link here as well. Go and check his part 2 out. But this is part 3. So today what we are talking about, we're going to discuss the Resident Evil film franchise, and we're going to talk about 10 things that could have made the whole franchise better. Right, before we get started, we'll just do the usual stuff. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well, and also share this video with your friends just to get the word out and let them know what you think of this video as well. Leave comments below, but also check out my partner in the series, John Joe's Fast Facts. There's a link up here to his channel. But that being said, let's get on with the list. Number 10. Have the central character be from the games. So, when they were writing the script and talking about what they were doing in this film, they all obviously sit around in an office, discuss how they're going to do it, and the main character comes up. Did they use Chris Redfield from the first game? Jill Valentine from the first game? Leon Kennedy from the second game even? No, they created Alice! I'm sorry, I really couldn't resist using that. But the point stands, I mean, that song has never been so appropriate than in this moment in time. Alice was never in any of the games. I don't know why they use that. In fact, in the first film, there isn't a single character from the games. Some of the creatures, aka the liquor, came over, but other than that, no one. Now, as the film franchise progressed, there was other characters came along, but they were background characters. They were never the central storyline. Why not? These were fantastic characters. We loved them in the games. Why can't we have them in the films? Number 9. The portrayal of Albert Wesker.
Albert Wesker is probably my favourite character of all time. At any film, villain or not. He's immensely powerful. It's insane. I mean, like, in the fourth film, he's shown with so much power. He has a fight scene where he's dodging bullets like the Matrix. He's been stabbed in the head, a shotgun in the mouth, blasted with nickels out the back of his head. His skull is ripped out. You can see inside. There's no brain. I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah. He tries to get up still. They push him back down, shoot him loads with their guns, and they lock him in a room. He then gets out, gets in a helicopter, sets off a self-destruct for the ship, but they put the bomb in the helicopter, which I can only describe as a vacuum nuke, goes off in front of his face. And yet in the fifth film, he's still alive. He gives Alice her powers back. And then in the sixth film, a door falls on his leg and he slowly dies out. Now, some people could say it's the explosion that really kills him, but ultimately, he had the detonator in his hand, and it was when he died that he would release it, causing the explosion. So, no, he died from that door crushing his leg. How? The only explanation I've actually found for this, which isn't really explained in the films that much, but during the fight scenes, Alex stabs him with a scalpel that had her blood on it. And that scalpel had her DNA, which passed over. Her DNA is the only DNA that actually was able to interact with the virus without having so many negative effects. So the theory is that Wesker and Alice's blood mixed together tried to neutralize the virus, maybe unintentionally, but that allowed Wesker to control the virus more, ultimately neutralizing it, I guess. But yeah, I'm not satisfied by that. I was expecting this massive fight scene, you know. Like in the games, Wesker was killed by falling in lava, and he was still fighting a helicopter whilst, you know, being melted by lava. And they shoot him with 2 RPGs in the face, causing a massive explosion in a pit of lava. And I was expecting something that would top that, and nothing did. A door landing on his leg. It's not very satisfying, you know? It's kind of a disappointment to see that. I was expecting some insane fight scene between Alice and Wesker on some form of biblical scale, but nope, we got a door crushing his leg. Yeah.
Number 8. Have the films based off the games. So yeah, this is a bit of an interesting one. I mean, the first game is predominantly set on Resident Evil 2 with a little bit of Resident Evil 1. The second film is purely based on Resident Evil 3, e.g. Nemesis. You had Nemesis walking around. With the third film seemed to be adapted from The Walking Dead. I'm not kidding either. The fourth film was more of George R. Romero's Of the Dead series. A group of stranded people needing rescuing. That's pretty much the premise of any of the Dead series. The fifth film was more of The House on the Haunted Hill. Underground bunker doing secret tests on everybody. And the sixth film, actually I can't even put where the sixth film comes in, that was just a unique thing on its own. But you've got this successful game franchise. We want to see big screen versions of it. Why do something completely and utterly unique that had nothing to do with the games at all? As I said, the first two films, they were, but as the films progressed, the stories were so different towards the end, it was unbelievable. Number 7. Stop ending on cliffhangers. Now, I'm a bit conflicted about this because I am a huge fan of cliffhangers. Star Trek Next Generation, best of both worlds, best cliffhanger ever. But on this film franchise, no. Now, I know Marvel Cinematic Universe actually took this to a whole new level, but they did it as teaser credits in the end of the credits. This film did some brilliant cliffhangers, but there was a big flaw with them. That big flaw I will talk about in the next entry. But the films didn't really need that big of a cliffhanger on every single film, especially when they're not really going to follow up on it. Number 6. At least follow up on the cliffhangers. So yes, I know I've literally just spoke about it, but it needs its own section. When you do a cliffhanger, follow up on it. Now they did do this in the first film. In fact, in the second film, it actually took place just before the cliffhanger. But then, the second film, they drove out, oh, there was something wrong with her. A few years later, she was nowhere to be seen with the main group, hence why Walking Dead. And then, it just got worse and worse from there. I mean, the best one, or worst one, was at the end of the fifth film. They're on top of the White House, the big group of the central cast of characters on top of the White House, about to be attacked. End of film. I actually said to my son, I bet we never see that fight. When the final chapter came out, I watched this film. I sent my son a text, just saying, called it. It was true. I knew they weren't going to follow up on that cliffhanger. They were missing bits out. That was awful. Why? They're probably the best bits. Number 5. More consistencies with Alice. So, in my opinion at least, each film had a different version of Alice. Now, granted, they did explain this in the actual films, but why did we have to have a different Alice? Why couldn't we have the same Alice from film to film to film? She was a completely different character in each film. No, there's no... It was like, these are completely 6 separate films. They weren't actually the same films. They didn't really follow on from each other. And Alice being a clone at the end? No. It just didn't really flow on. I didn't like the fact we had a different Alice every single film. Number 4. Too many clones. So, as I just touched upon in the last entry, too many clones. But there was. I mean, come the third film, there was clones of Alice left, right and centre. And towards the, literally at the end of the 6th film, Alice was a clone anyway. No, Dr. Isaacs, he was a clone. And there ended up being a few different clones of him as well. The whole 5th film, there was tons of clones of characters that were already dead from the first couple of films. Why? Did we need to do this? No. Why? It didn't really help. It wasn't really Resident Evil. Now that was something I touched upon in the worst to best list. Resident Evil is supposed to be survival horror. This was sci-fi zombie films. Completely and utterly different genre. What games were Paul Anderson actually watching? Number 3. Have someone else take over. Now, I don't mean any disrespect to Paul Anderson, Paul W.S. Anderson even, because I'm actually a huge fan of his earlier works. I loved his film Event Horizon. It was a sci-fi horror film. It was fantastic. I actually really enjoyed the Mortal Kombat film. It's a video game film. That was awesome. That being said, actually, saying that, the first Resident Evil film, other than the problems we said at the beginning of this video, it was actually a good film. But it just got stupid as it went along. His reputation has hurt it. It should have changed hands after the first film, have someone else and put their input in. Now, sometimes it can work and sometimes it can't. But in this case, it hurt it. Now, as you go and look at the MCU, each film has a different director. So it's their vision and it works. Sometimes it doesn't, but ultimately, overall, over 20 films, it's worked. Having one person having the final say from start to finish has really hurt it. Especially, as I said in the previous entry, I don't know what game Paul W.S. Anderson was actually playing, but the final few films were not Resident Evil films. Number 2, should have made the final film final. Right, I know that sounds a bit of a cliche, but the final film, yes, is the final film of that franchise. That's it, it's over. But it wasn't final. If you remember, at the end of the film, she turned and said, I've still got lots more work to do. You've just set up for another film. No! This was supposed to be the final film. It was called the final chapter. It was supposed to be it. That's it. Leave it on a nice note. Do the Lord of the Rings where you have 10 different happy endings. Just finish the film franchise and leave it there. We didn't need that final line of just saying there's more work to do. I groaned when I heard that. Oh, no. I am hoping. Well, we know it's not happening because there is a reboot on the way. Talking of the reboot though, number 1. Have the reboot have nothing to do with the previous franchise. Okay, yes, this one's not really about this film franchise. It's more of a foreshadowing for the reboot series on it. Please don't watch this. Have nothing to do with this whatsoever. Use it in your own unique way. Now, I know it has changed hands because James Wan, who made the Saw series, was originally slated to do this, but he's left to go and do the Mortal Kombat reboot, which was also done by Paul W.S. Anderson. That's quite an interesting fact. John Joe's better not steal that one. But other than that, the reboot, I am excited for the reboot as long as they keep it towards the game. That was the biggest flaw of this franchise, was it wasn't based on the games too much. Yes, they had some of the characters over, but the overall story, which is one of the selling points of the Resident Evil game franchise, is the story. This had nothing to do with that at all. So fingers crossed in the future that works. Final thoughts. The thing is, with this franchise is, if you took out the Resident Evil part, what you've actually got is actually a really good zombies franchise. The biggest flaw that this franchise has is the fact that it is supposed to be based on Resident Evil, and that actually hurts it. If you took that away, you have got 6 good, well-made action zombie films. And that's fine. If you go in with that mindset, you will enjoy these films. The problem that I had was I went in thinking of a Resident Evil film, and that's why I didn't enjoy it as much as I should. Now, yeah, they were good. They were good stories. There was brilliant action in there, brilliant sci-fi elements. Just, it wasn't Resident Evil. That's the biggest thing. What do you think? Did you enjoy the franchise? Am I completely being harsh on this? Leave your notes and comments below, and I will reply to each and every person on there. As I said, this is part 3 of 4. Part 4 will be coming on Monday on John Jones Fast Facts. There's a link to his channel up here. But other than that, if you want to keep in touch with me, please subscribe to my channel. My social media is here. I'm on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Patreon at Berryman81. I'm more than willing to talk to anybody and argue with anyone why I'm wrong. It's brilliant. But other than that, I will look forward to seeing you next week, and keep in touch. Bye bye.